We all got the power in our hands to kill, but most people are afraid to use it. The ones who aren't afraid control life itself. On March 17, 1985, Richard Ramirez shot 22-year-old Maria Hernadez outside her home in Rosemead, California. She was shot in the face, and her roommate was also shot. Only an hour later, Veronica Yu was shot twice after stepping out of her car. The people of California were perplexed at the two murders and one attempted killing that had all happened in a few hours. The suspect was referred to as the walk-in killer in the Valley Intruder, but only one name sticks through history: the Night Stalker. The first 3 official killings of the Night Stalker were all committed in one night. But who was Richard Ramirez, and what pushed him to commit these crimes? In this episode of The Most Dangerous Animal of All, we take a look at Richard Ramirez, the Night Stalker. Richard Ramirez was born to Mercedes and Julian Ramirez in El Paso, Texas. He was the youngest of 5 children, and it is believed that the children were born with birth defects due to their mother being exposed to chemical fumes at work while pregnant. Richard experienced seizures due to epilepsy, and he also suffered from a head injury at 2 years old when a dresser fell on his head. Additionally, Richard also fell off a swing when he was 5 and passed out. It is believed that Richard's father was violent and abusive, and that he had abused Richard growing up. This especially was the case if the children got into any trouble. Ramirez also mentioned how his father would beat him and his siblings growing up. When Richard's cousin Miguel returned back to the family, the situation at home grew worse. Richard was only 12 when his cousin returned home after serving in the Vietnam War. Richard's view of the world began to change, and Miguel quickly became his role model. However, Miguel would show 12-year-old Richard Polaroid pictures of women that he had raped, and he would retell graphic stories of the violence and mutilation that he had inflicted on the Vietnamese women. Instead of being disgusted, Richard began to enjoy these stories, and even began to become sexually aroused from listening to the horrific things Miguel had done to these women. At only 13 years old, Richard witnessed his cousin Miguel shoot his wife in the face. Miguel was sentenced to 4 years in prison. It was also around this time that Richard began breaking into other people's homes. This pattern is also something that is visible in his adult life. After the murder he witnessed, Ramirez moved in with his sister, whose husband was referred to as a peeping Tom. He would take Ramirez out at night with him. Ramirez eventually dropped out of high school and moved to LA, where he continued to commit crimes and was arrested for car theft. He picked up a cocaine habit and began to become interested in Satanism. At the age of 34, Ramirez began to kill. While it is unknown how many people that Ramirez actually killed, it is believed to be at least 14 people between June 1984 and August 1985. On June 28, 1984, the first identified Night Stalker crime occurs when Richard Ramirez broke into 79-year-old Jenny Winco's apartment. She was found nearly decapitated. After this first crime, Ramirez waited about 8 months before murdering again. He attacked 22-year-old Maria Hernadez outside her home. While she was shot in the face, she ended up surviving the attack. Her roommate, Dayle Yoshie, was also fatally shot in the head. Only an hour later, Veronica Yu was shot twice after getting out of her car. A policeman found her still breathing, but she died before the ambulance arrived. The 2 attacks occurring on the same day bolstered media attention, and in turn, caused panic and fear among the public. The media, not sure what to think of the killings yet, began to name the killer. He was called the Walk-in Killer and the Valley Intruder. On March 27, 1985, Ramirez entered a home he had previously stolen from and fatally shoots 64-year-old Vincent Charles Zazara while he is sleeping. His wife, 44-year-old Maxine, was woken up from the gunshot. Ramirez beats her and searches her rooms for valuables. While Maxine escapes the binds and is able to grab a gun, it wasn't loaded. Ramirez then shoots her 3 times, stabs her, and gouges out her eyes. He puts her eyes in a jewelry box and leaves. He leaves footprints in the flower beds and bullets at the scene that match those from the previous attacks. Ramirez continues to kill over the next few months until July 5, 1985, when 16-year-old Whitney Bennett survives an attack. He tried to attack Bennett while she was sleeping by strangling her with a telephone cord, but the cord began to spark, and she began to breathe again. Ramirez fled the scene as he believes Jesus saved her, and Bennett survives the attack. Only 2 days later after this incident, on July 7, 1985, Ramirez breaks into Joyce Nelson's home. He beats her to death and leaves a shoe print on her face. He then enters Sophie Dickman's home, handcuffs her at gunpoint, and attempts to rape her and steal her jewelry. He then tells Dickman to swear on Satan that he has taken everything of value in our home. On July 20th, 1985, Ramirez buys a machete and drives a stolen vehicle to Glendale, California, where he enters Layla and Maxim Kneading's home and kills them with a machete and a gun. He then drives to Sun Valley and shoots, rapes, and steals from another family's home. Once again, he asks them to swear on Satan that there aren't any more valuables left to steal. The way Richard Ramirez killed was disorganized and seemed quite random to the outside world. He often left behind shoe prints, fingerprints, and evidence that linked him directly to the killing. This indicated that he killed without much thought and consideration of the consequences. He would sexually assault and rape his victims, as well as brutalize his victims. This can be seen in several cases where he stomped people to death, beat them to death, or continuously shot or stabbed them. He would torture his victims, sometimes even gouging their eyes out. Additionally, he would slash some of his victims' throats so badly they were almost decapitated. Ramirez did not have a particular way of killing people, and seemed to use what was most convenient at the time, whether this was a gun, machete, knife, or even his own hands. However, Ramirez did establish a bit of a pattern as time went on. His signature killing style was to shoot and kill the husband first, and then assault and stab the wife. One unique thing about Ramirez's case was the fact that he killed based on availability, meaning he would kill whoever was available and convenient. He had no particular type, and seemed to be interested in just killing. Unlike Ted Bundy and Jack the Ripper, who focused specifically on killing women, Ramirez would kill whoever crossed his path, whether they were male, female, old, or young. Ramirez mostly killed at night, hence the name the Night Stalker. He would break into people's homes while they were sleeping, often stealing everything of value in their homes before murdering them. Ramirez often added a satanic element to his crimes due to his involvement with Satanism. He would sometimes carve pentagrams into his victims' bodies and even force them to swear their love for Satan. Due to the gruesome nature of the murders, the Satanism, the lack of pattern between the victims, and the rape, the LAPD were unsure who the killer could be. The public's panic just continued to rise, and there was a noticeable surge in the sale of guns, lock installations, burglar alarms, and attack dogs. Ramirez continued to kill, rape, steal, and bind people until August 25, 1985, when he was finally identified as the killer. Ramirez broke into Bill Carnes and Inez Erickson's home, where he shot Carnes 3 times in the head. He told Erickson that he was the Night Stalker, and she must swear her love to Satan. After raping her, he told her to tell them the Night Stalker was here. His final victims were able to survive the attack and give the police a description of their attacker, as well as the person who stole their car. When the car was found, it contained DNA fingerprints that match Ramirez. Quote, "We know who you are now, and soon everyone else will." End quote. Quote, "There will be no place you can hide." End quote. On August 30th to 31st, 1985, Ramirez took a bus to Tucson, Arizona to visit his brother. When he returned to California the next day, he did not realize his mugshot was all over the newspaper. When he noticed it, he tried to carjack a woman's vehicle, but a group of bystanders began to pursue him. They hit Ramirez in the head, and they were able to contain him until the police arrived. After Ramirez's arrest, he was put on trial for the murders he had committed. When his trial began, Ramirez would yell, "Hail Satan," and he had a pentagram on his hand. On September 20th, 1989, Ramirez was convicted on 13 counts of murder, 5 attempted murders, 11 sexual assaults, and 14 burglaries, putting him on death row. However, Ramirez would die from B-cell lymphoma, a form of blood cancer, on June 7, 2013. Richard Ramirez was an individual who early on faced abuse from his father. He was heavily influenced by his cousin Miguel, which could have also influenced his sexual desires. The early exposure of violence and crime, in particular Ramirez witnessing a murder at only 13, could have played a heavy role in his development and his crimes later on. Ramirez starting with theft from such a young age and breaking into people's home as a teenager is a pattern seen in his adult life as well, while he was committing the murders. Ramirez being surrounded by criminal and violent influences could have caused him to develop his psychopathy further. This combined with his drug addiction and abuse of substances such as cocaine and LSD could have further developed his psychopathy, leading him to commit horrific and violent crimes in his adult life. Overall, the combination of an abusive childhood, exposure to violence and rape early on, as well as witnessing a murder could have heavily influenced Ramirez's development.
A serial killer comes about by circumstances and like a recipe: poverty, drugs, child abuse. These things, contribute to a person's frustration and anger, and at some point in life, he explodes.
The involvement of Satanism, theft, and drug use also influences adult life and crimes heavily.
I'm not going to blame society, my race, or people, or anything. It is up to the individual like myself to keep on knocking on whatever door they want to get into.
In several interviews, Ramirez argues that all humans are evil, but he just chose to be truthful with who he is.
Do you admit to being evil, Richard?
We are all evil in some form or another, are we not?
I'm asking you the questions, my friend.
Yes, I am evil. Not 100%, but I am evil.
He also states that while killers can feel remorse, he has no comment on it himself.
Even psychopaths have emotions if you dig deep enough, but then again, maybe they don't.
Do you have emotions, Richard?
No comment.
Tell me what kind of emotions you got going through you right now.
I'll tell you what, I gave up on love and happiness a long time ago.
Why did you kill those people?
No comments. No comments. I cannot answer it at this time.
While the Night Stalker caused public panic in the 80s, it is still a chilling case to this day due to Ramirez's lack of guilt and brutal murders.
Who are you?
You're just a guy. Just a guy.